know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.
The 1966-67 season has gone down in folklore as one of the greatest seasons in the history of Queen's Park Rangers. QPR were an ambitious third division club who had come close to promotion multiple times, but after the sale of the great Brian Bedford, Rangers went through a bit of a rebuild and we just missed out on promotion in 1965, finishing in third place. But the arrival of Rodney Marsh had brought a lot of excitement, with the charismatic forward scoring 8 goals in his first 16 games for QPR. The pick of those games was a 6-1 win over Millwall, who had just finished above Rangers in second place. But Marsh's performance that day did not get the reaction he had hoped for.
My first home game, we played Millwall. We smashed 6 goals past them. And I was brilliant. I mean, I scored 2 and made a few more for Les Allen, and the team was great, and I had a particularly great game. And afterwards, we came into the dressing room, and Alex Stock walks in with his blazer and his tie, and he walks straight past me, walks up to Mike Keane, the captain, and he went, "Well played, skipper," and just walked out. And I went, what about me? That was Alex Stock, and that's why he was such a great man manager. Put me in my place, you know.
The summer of 1966 had seen England win the World Cup, so the mood among all of football was euphoric going into the season that QPR would never forget. It didn't actually start that brilliantly though, with a 2-2 draw against Shrewsbury. Rodney Marsh and Les Allen were on the score sheet for Rangers, and we followed that up with a 1-0 defeat at Watford, leaving us just outside the relegation zone. Things quickly turned though, and in the League Cup first round, newly promoted Colchester United faced QPR, and it was the Rodney Marsh show, with the QPR number 10 scoring 4 times in a 5-0 win to send us into the next round. That night was also the first with new floodlights at Loftus Road, and they were opened by FIFA President Sir Stanley Rouse. A 3-1 win over Swindon at Loftus Road got the league season going, before a night under the lights against Middlesbrough, where Rodney Marsh got his second hat-trick of the season in a thumping 4-0 win. Les Allen got the other goal that night, but it was the performance of Marsh that got everyone talking. And when this QPR team got going, they were almost impossible to stop. A Jim Langley penalty and a goal from Ian Morgan ensured that we left local rivals Reading with a point before the second round of the League Cup saw Rangers draw at Aldershot, setting up a replay at Loftus Road. But what followed was a week that would turn a lot of heads as QPR began to run riot. On a beautiful late summer's day in West London, we faced Doncaster at home, and it was the first time that season that manager Alex Stock could field his strongest team, and what a team it was. We had Peter Springett in goal, who had been the main QPR keeper for 5 seasons, playing over 160 times for the club. Tony Hazel was at right back. He joined the club as a 15-year-old and spent 10 years at the club, making over 400 appearances. At left back was Jim Langley, who spent most of his career at Fulham, winning 3 England caps before he joined Rangers in 1965. He was in his mid-30s at the time, but he still had loads to offer. Captain Mike Keane spent a decade at the club, playing over 400 times for Rangers, scoring 45 goals. Ron Hunt spent his entire career at QPR, featuring over 200 times for the club, whilst alongside him was Frank Sibley. Now Frank is another club legend, who was the youngest ever player to play for QPR, aged just 15. He would go on to both coach and manage QPR during the 70s, 80s and 90s. At outside right, we had Mark Lazarus, a brilliant attacking player who enjoyed 3 spells at the club, scoring 84 goals. He was a player who loved his time at QPR.
QPR, I know that success, you know, everybody wants to talk to you, everybody wants, and we had so much success there. But it wasn't that. It was just the club was a good guy. I mean, the chairman, from the chairman downwards, everybody enjoyed themselves. And the chairman used to take us out to dinner overnight, proud to. Let's go into this restaurant. and we'd all be sitting down there, and people used to flock over to us for our autographs and all that. Because everybody down the line, just a super little club, super little club.
Inside right was Keith Sanderson, who joined QPR in 1965, and he was a hard-working player for the team. Here's Rodney Marsh talking about Keith's vital input that season.
It was just great to be part of it. We had players in the team that could have only have played for QPR, probably before and since. And I'm thinking of somebody specifically, a guy called Keith Sanderson, who nobody has heard of, probably never heard of before, and nobody's ever heard of since. But he got so little credit for what he did. He was, I think he was from Cambridge University. He wasn't a full professional player, and yet he was one of the fittest footballers I've ever seen in my life. And he just ran up and down the pitch, game after game after game, and actually did all my donkey work.
Roger Morgan was an exciting wide player who came through the ranks at Rangers to star in this team, and his twin brother Ian was also at the club and a regular for Rangers off the bench. You then had Les Allen up front, who had won the double at Tottenham and joined QPR in 1965 for £21,000. He scored 62 goals for Rangers, and his sons Clive and Bradley would both go on to play for us. The star man, though, was of course Rodney Marsh, who had joined from Fulham the previous year, and, well, he's going to feature a fair bit in this video. Over his career at QPR, he played 242 times and scored 134 goals. It's a team that rolls off the tongue for fans lucky enough to have seen them play. And they were of course led by one of our best ever managers in Alex Stock. Here are a few members of that team talking about what a great manager he was.
For me, Alex Stock was the best thing that I found in football. In the first instance, Alex Stock was a gentleman, a captain in the army, a leader of men.
He was a disciplinarian. If you were late for the coach went without you. So there wasn't many of us late.
Alex Stock was a mentor to us because we were young, and he was like a headmaster, and he had so much respect from both of us and all the youngsters in the club.
It was a father and son relationship with me and Alec. If I'd done something wrong, he'd think nothing of giving me a clip round the ear on. Didn't know much about football, so there was no tactics. There was no sheets of paper and writing down in books and what you've got to do on the pitch and what you haven't got to do. He just wanted you to play.
Very much wanted to play young players in the first team.
He was honest and you knew where you stood with him. He'd tell you to your face if he needed to tell you anything.
People ask me about the number 10 shirt and the number 10 legacy. That wasn't Rodney Marsh, really. That was Alex Stock. When I signed, Alex Stock walked me out onto the pitch, put his arm around me and he said, I want you to score goals, I want you to make goals, and if you don't, you'll be out. You will be my number 10. And for the next 7 years at QPR, Alex Stock never called me Rodney, he never called me Marsh, he just called me, he's number 10.
To play in those sides was really exciting times. We were always trying to play good, attractive football. You know, we were never defensive, we were always attacking, and that came through from the side of the 60s, 67s in the League Cup final.
So with Doncaster in town, QPR really clicked, with Roger Morgan and Mike Keane both scoring headers before Keith Sanderson put us 3-0 up before half-time. Rodney Marsh added a fourth, his 8th goal already that season, before Mike Keane and Roger Morgan scored their second goals of the afternoon, and Rangers ended up winning 6-0. A narrow 2-0 win over Aldershot followed in the League Cup. Rodney was again on the score sheet before a memorable trip to Mansfield, who had beaten Rangers 8-1 just 18 months earlier. Only 3 players remained at QPR from that humiliating defeat: Mike Keane, Tony Hazel and Ian Morgan. But Rangers certainly went out to get revenge. Mark Lazarus missed the game as it was Jewish New Year, so both Morgan twins started the game. But it didn't affect things as QPR ripped their opponents apart. Rodney Marsh scored another hat-trick, Les Allen scored twice, whilst goals from Keith Sanderson and a penalty from Jim Langley earned Rangers a 7-1 win. Legend has it that Mike Keane missed a late sitter which would have equalled Rangers' humiliating defeat. The games were coming thick and fast as we travelled to Middlesbrough on the Monday and earned a 2-2 draw with Rodney Marsh and the returning Mark Lazarus on the scoresheet. As September ended, Rangers sat in the automatic promotion places in second place. 4 wins, 3 draws and 1 defeat from the opening 8 league games of the season. Rodney Marsh sat as the club's top goal scorer with 9 league goals and 5 goals in the League Cup. Les Allen had 5 goals, whilst Mark Lazarus had scored 4. It had been an exciting start to the season for Rangers. After a good start to the season, Rangers sat in the automatic promotion places, and the team's great form continued into October. A double from Les Allen helped us to a 5-1 win over Grimsby, with Marsh, Lazarus and Roger Morgan also on the scoresheet that day. Next up was a hide-in for Swansea, with another double for Les Allen as we ran out 4-2 winners. We faced Swansea again a couple of days later in the League Cup, and it was another win, 2-1 this time. Goals by Tony Hazel and Mike Keane put QPR into the 4th round against top-flight Leicester City, who had won the League Cup just 2 years earlier. A packed Loftus Road that night as Rangers were 2-1 down at half-time, but they come storming back to thrash their top-flight opponents, 4-2. Another double from Les Allen and goals from Lazarus and Roger Morgan put QPR into the quarter-finals. Fans were really starting to believe that this was going to be a special season.
We were always a team of second half. We were always behind. After the first half against Leicester, we were getting beat 2-1. We finished up beating them 4-2. There was a lot of times where we were behind in the first half and we came out and just absolutely slaughtered them in the second half.
Despite draws with Torquay and Gillingham, Rangers remained top of the league before getting back to form with a thumping win, this time 4-1 against Leyton Orient, Les Allen again grabbing 2 of the goals. A 2-2 draw with Gillingham meant that Rangers ended the month in second place, but we were still in the last 8 of the League Cup as well. Rodney Marsh topped the goal scoring charts with 19 for the season. Les Allen scored 8 in October to make it 13 for him, whilst Mark Lazarus and Roger Morgan each had 7 goals. Our great start to the season was not going unnoticed though, and rumours began to grow that Newcastle United were looking to sign our star men Roger Morgan and Rodney Marsh. Fans feared the worst, and a bid was made for the pair of them with a fee of £45,000. Chairman Jim Gregory rejected the bid, and a new one of £95,000 was made, which sounds small change these days, but was a massive amount back then for 2 players in Division 3. Rangers held firm though and kept hold of both of the players, much to the delight of the supporters. Now Woking were the visitors on bonfire night as Rangers got back to winning ways. Rodney Marsh made it 20 goals for the season, scoring twice in a 4-1 win. It proved to be a fruitful month for Rodney as he grabbed a double in a 2-0 win up at Scunthorpe before returning to Loftus Road for a wet and windy night against Torquay United. Rangers were below their best that night, but thanks to goals from Roger Morgan and Les Allen, they won 2-1 and returned to the top of the table. Hopes were now high, and a season-high crowd of 14,000 was at Loftus Road for the visit of Oldham. We were unbeaten in 19 games, and expectation was high. So you can probably guess what happened next. Yes, a 1-0 win for Oldham. Even in one of our best ever seasons, there was still one of those days. QPR faced non-league Poole Town next in the FA Cup, which should have been a case of how many would we score, but it turned out to be a nervy afternoon for Alex Stock's men. Young Mike Kelly made his debut for QPR in goal, and he got a nasty kick to the head, meaning he had to go off. With no sub-goalkeeper in those days, it was Jim Langley winning goal for Rangers, and that gave Paul some confidence, and Rangers struggled to a 3-2 victory. The brilliance of Rodney Marsh ensured we avoided a cup upset as he scored another hat-trick. So we ended November still top of the table with just 2 defeats all season. Rodney Marsh had 26 league and cup goals, with Les Allen scoring 15. The team had scored 53 league goals already. It was certainly entertaining for the QPR fans.
It was a marvellous time. It was one of those times where, and you don't often get it. I've never had that same feeling even though I've been with great players and played with great players since. I never got the same feeling as I had with QPR, and it was like the fans were part of it. You go up the pub after games with the supporters, and you'd be in the pub with the supporters. And it was just unique.
Despite being top, though, that defeat to Oldham and the performance against Poole Town brought a few worries to the team. Ian Watson returned at right back for the visit of Bristol Rovers, but it was back to business as usual, with the team winning 3-0, thanks to goals from Les Allen, Keith Sanderson and Mark Lazarus. It was then back to the League Cup and Carlisle United at home in the quarter-finals. Now, Carlisle were a division higher than Rangers at the time and pushing for promotion to the top flight. This was not going to be an easy game. Over 19,000 fans filled Loftus Road for a massive night. And once again, Rodney Marsh was the star of the show. He scored twice in a hard-fought 2-1 victory. That win put us into the semi-final. Birmingham City stood between QPR and a trip to Wembley, where they would face West Brom or a West Ham side featuring several World Cup winners. We were soon back down to earth with a 0-0 draw at Shrewsbury, which was only the second time we failed to score all season. But the goals were quickly flowing again, with a Boxing Day 3-0 win over Brighton. Keith Sanderson, Mark Lazarus, and of course Rodney Marsh were among the goals. There was just a day between games that year, with Rangers facing Brighton again on the 27th. This time we could only get a 2-2 draw, with young striker Alan Wilkes scoring on his debut. We entered the year with a home game against promotion rivals Watford on New Year's Eve, and the year certainly ended with a bang, as Rodney Marsh scored twice and the team won 4-1. Mark Lazarus also on the score sheet, as well as young defender Frank Sibley. So as 1966 came to an end, QPR sat top of the table and heading towards promotion, with excitement at fever pitch for the upcoming League Cup semi-final. Rodney Marsh had scored 32 goals for the season in all competition. Les Allen, Mark Lazarus and Roger Morgan were also all into double figures, as we started 1967 with everything to gain. So as 1967 started, in the league we only actually played twice in January, a 2-1 win over Reading and a 1-1 draw up at Doncaster, which kept Rangers top, but all the excitement and focus was over the cup competitions. We eased into the third round of the FA Cup with a 2-0 win over Bournemouth before the 17th of January 1967 and a League Cup semi-final against Birmingham City. Now Birmingham were in the top 6 of the second division and had some quality players, including Barry Bridges, who would go on to play for QPR a few years later. A crowd of over 34,000 were in attendance in what many expected to be the end of our cup run, and it looked like that would be proved right when Bridges put Birmingham ahead early. The dream was coming to an end. Or was it? The half-time team talk from Alex Stock certainly did the trick, and we came out for that second half absolutely flying. Rodney Marsh equalised with a far post header, and that spurred Rangers into life as we played Birmingham off the park. Mark Lazarus, Les Allen and Roger Morgan all scored goals in the second half to secure an unbelievable 4-1 win for QPR, and we had one foot on the bus to Wembley. The other semi-final was also a big win, with West Brom thrashing West Ham 4-0. Rangers ended the month losing 3-0 to Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup, in a game that saw former QPR goalkeeper Ron Springett in goal for Wednesday against his brother Peter, who was in goal for Rangers that day, in front of a crowd of 40,000. Peter must have done something right in that game, as he moved to Sheffield Wednesday a few months later, and his brother Ron returned to QPR. As February approached, it was getting to crunch time, and despite a big lead at the top of the table, the club had blown promotion several times in the 60s, so fans were still a little nervous that a brilliant season could still go wrong. Those fears only grew as we drew at home to Mansfield just days before the second leg of the semi-final. Loftus Road was packed with a crowd of 24,000 in to see if QPR could book a place at Wembley. It was a tight and tense first half, with neither side able to open the scoring, but once again we came out of the second half flying. Rodney Marsh made it 5-1 on aggregate with a shot from the edge of the box before adding a second, as Birmingham threw everything forward. Birmingham did get one back, but a late Mike Keane header made it 3-1 on the night, 7-2 on aggregate. An incredible achievement. 3rd Division QPR were going to Wembley for a major cup final. There was of course still a job to do in the league, and a 1-1 draw at Grimsby soon brought fans back down to earth. But we were soon back to winning ways, as Mark Lazarus scored in a 2-0 win at Peterborough, and then he scored a hat-trick at Swansea for his 16th goal of the season, in what would be our last match before the League Cup final.
People used to come from far and wide. We were the inside in London. People used to come and watch us. We used to get 22s and 23s, as much as the ground could hold in them days. We were a good sight to watch. What was Rodney doing his business and scoring 40-odd goals in that season. Roger and Les Allen, Frank Sibley, Peter Springett, God rest his soul, Jimmy Langley, never to be forgotten. Jimmy done a hell of a lot for us. Tony Hazel was a good player, good man to have behind me anyway, because he could run. I mean, if Jimmy Langley would have been behind me, I might have had to tackle back a bit more than what I did. But Tony was very agile, very quick. For instance, the way to describe it all was built. We never had a coach in them days. Nobody went out onto the pitch and trained us. We used to go in of a morning. We used to go out onto the pitch, and we used to do a couple of laps in our own time, and then we used to get a ball out and have a little game of five-a-side. We used to start work. We used to start training at 10:30, and we never used to want to come home. The camaraderie of the team. I mean, I've been in clubs where I can't wait to get out. Do your training, get in your car and drive home. There, I mean, days off, for instance. Nobody wanted a day off. Come Wednesday, they say, oh, you can have a day off today. Don't come in Wednesdays. Everybody used to come in. And it wasn't as if, like, the club was round the corner. I mean, I live at Romford here. The Morgan twins lived in Leytonstone. So did Mickey Leach, God rest his soul. He lived in Leytonstone. Mickey Keane lived in High Wycombe. Ronnie Hunt lived at Slough. We were all... Rodney lived in Edmonton or Wimbledon, somewhere like that. It wasn't as if the club was round the corner and we didn't have nowhere to go. It was... Nobody wanted a day off. Nobody wanted to leave the training ground. And when Bill Dodgin came in, some great thing about Bill Dodgin, he came to QPR to be our coach. And he came to watch us play Gillingham, I think it was, away. We done them about 4-0 or something like that. And come Monday morning, Bill Dodgin got introduced to us in the dressing room, and he said, right, we're going out doing a training session now. And when we got out of the pitch, and he went, this was a training session with Bill Dodgin's first day. He said, well, what have you been doing before I got here? And we told him. He said, right, carry on doing it. I was at QPR for 8 of them. No better time than Queen's Park Rangers. And I think the supporters gave me as much pleasure as I gave them. Because I was a supporter's boy. I mean, every time I got the ball, it seemed to lift them. And everything I'd done, I couldn't do wrong in their eyes. They were marvellous to me. Made me the character that I was. I used to score a goal, I used to go over and shake their hands. One guy said to me, why didn't you shake me hand the other day, after you scored the goal? And he was along the wall, He got the needle because I never shook his hand. There's only about 12,000 people there at the time.
March the 4th, 1967 is the day that will live forever in QPR history. A bright spring day for the first ever League Cup final at Wembley. 3rd Division QPR taking on top flight West Bromwich Albion. Here's the story of the day. told by Rodney Marsh, Mark Lazarus and Roger Morgan.
A wonderful experience, you know, even before we got to Wembley to play. We was all on the coach and we went all round Willesden and through Holland Park and everywhere, and the streets were lined with people waving to us before we even got to Wembley. Our coach ride to Wembley was just as amazing as winning it. I mean, we had to win. You know, I mean, we got such support. I mean, I can remember Terry Downs having a Rolls Royce. Terry Downs, who was the world boxing champion, middleweight champion, and a good friend of mine, and a staunch supporter of QPR. He had a Rolls Royce and he had it painted in blue and white stripes, our colours. You know, I mean, that was the feeling that was around Westbourne Park and all round Shepherd's Bush area. You know, it was just amazing, just getting there.
Do you know, I don't remember too much of that, if I'm perfectly frank. I don't remember too much about the build-up or actually after what happened, after the game. Apart from the night before, all the lads didn't get to bed till most of the lads didn't get to bed till about 2 o'clock in the morning because we had a bit of fun that night, as only a third division team that had gone too far could do, and we had a guy called Bobby Keach who wasn't starting. He was in reserves, but he was part of the squad. And Bobby Keach, who I loved as a person, Bobby had organised this bit of a drink in one of the rooms and a bit of a laugh and a joke, and it was great fun and not the sort of preparation you get in today's football, wouldn't have thought. There was a group of supporters that carried a coffin from Loftus Road to Wembley on their shoulders. It was a West Brom coffin, you know. And as the procession went along, it gathered momentum, and there was more and more. There was, in the end, there were thousands and thousands of people walking behind this coffin to Wembley. I mean, just things you wouldn't see in today's football.
And when we got off the coach and went into the dressing room, we went outside and we looked around Wembley, our blazers, and you know, it was just a feeling that, you know, we weren't there just to have a game. We had to win that game. And I think the gods were with us on that day as well.
I never doubted it, really. You know, when we were going on the cup run, to get to Wembley was to get to Wembley. If we won or lost, you know, yes, you're going to be sad if you lose and great if you won. But I think probably the league, winning the league, was the hardest thing to do. But we played so well during that the 46 games, and the one game at as a cup final, we did our did what we wanted to do at that cup final. We didn't play well, as I said, we didn't play well in the first half, but we played certainly a lot better in the second half, and we were still enjoying it, whether we were winning or losing. But it's much better when you enjoy it when you're playing well.
I can remember myself being very quiet because most of the game was being taken to us, and Clive Clark was on the left-hand side. He was playing against Tony Hazel, and he'd scored 2 goals. But before he scored, even, you know, I mean, they were a very, very good side, West Bromwich Albion. Bobby Hope and Clive, Tony Kay, Jeff Astle, you know, they had all England, Scottish internationals in the side. You know, there was no, I mean, they'd just beaten West Ham 4-0, and I think it was 4-0 and 3-0 in the semi-final of the League Cup, you know, and they were in the First Division. The old Premier League, the old First Division. So we had no qualms about West Bromwich Albion. They were a bloody good side. And in the first half, Tony Hazel was getting a bit of a run around by Clive because he was a very good player as well, Clive. And it was no, you know, I mean, if I'd have been a West Brom supporter, to go in at 2-0 half time, that is what they deserved. But I can remember us not being that dominant. You know, I think the occasion might have got to us. You know, running out at Wembley, 100,000 people. Although we had to win, but we weren't, as I said before, you know, second half team. We weren't that great as starters. We were like a boxer. We used to go out and feel around for a couple of rounds before we got going.
Welcome to Wembley Stadium, the scene of the 1967 League Cup final between 3rd Division Queen's Park Rangers and the holders 1st Division West Bromwich Albion. Many of you thought that was Ron Springett, the Rangers goalkeeper. Rangers on the right. It isn't, it's his brother Peter. And banners, flags, goodness knows what, break out all over Wembley, and the Queen's Park Rangers chanted, Rodney, 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 for Rodney Marsh. And there's the two captains, Mike Keane on the left, playing his 214th consecutive game for the Rangers. He hasn't missed a game for 4 years, League Cup or friendly. The sun is shining, as you can see from the shadows. The ground is packed. The Rangers from the 3rd Division kick off. Mr. Crossley of Lancaster checking his watches, and away we go. And when you hear the beating of drums, don't worry, it's just the Rangers supporters.
As the game kicked off, things didn't go to plan, as West Brom took a 7th-minute lead through former QPR man Clive Clark.
Cram to Hope. Up now comes Fraser. This is good football, and a chance for a goal. Clark has scored! Clark has scored against his old team. 7 minutes on. Clive Clark has done it against his old team, and so has kept up his record of scoring in every game in the competition.
Rangers were being overrun in midfield, and Clark made it 2-0 before half-time.
Fraser's Rangers come out to try and play somebody offside, and they fail, and there's Brown with a chance. He's got Clark with him, and Clark is onside, and Clark's made it 2. Got the second. 36 minutes gone.
It all looked lost, but there was still some belief in the changing room.
I think Mike Keane most probably took us by the scruff of the neck. Rodney started playing. Roger started buzzing around on the left, and he could have been an handful for anybody. Ronnie started getting stuck in, like Ronnie Hunt started getting stuck into Jeff Astor, and Frank Sibley was another robust, you know, young kid, very, very enthusiastic. Jimmy started, you know, telling them what to do from behind, and everybody seemed to like, right, this is it, lads. We've sorted them out the first 2 rounds. Now we know what we've got to do. Let's go and do it.
To be honest, I have no clue, because I didn't used to listen to Alex Stock. I just thought he rambled, and I always felt that the best person to do what was right for the team was me. You know, I just did my own thing, I played my own way, and my logic was, if I'm playing well, the team's going to win. If I have a bit of a bad day, we'll be in trouble. And that may sound conceited, but that's the honest way I looked at it.
We just had a word from Alex Stock that he was not satisfied in the first half. He's going to give his strong talking to his forwards. Well, they've had it, and let's see what difference it's going to make. But let's remember, the
experienced players come out for that second half like men possessed. Jim Langley, magnificent at the back. Les Allen dropping into midfield to win that battle, and Mark Lazarus enjoying himself out wide. It was better from Rangers, but 63 minutes on the clock, we were still 2 goals behind, and all kind of looked lost. But what followed was one of the great comebacks.
Oh, what a game he's having. Allen to take the free kick for the Rangers. 11 Albion men back in their own defence. And it's a goal scored by Morgan.
I mean, a lot of people said it hit my head and went in, but you know, when we used to have training days, I always, Mark, Lazarus and I were told by Alex Stock to go at fullbacks and cross the ball. When you cross the ball, you go to near post or far post, and that's what I did. You know, there was a space, I ran into it, the ball came over Rodney Marsh's head, and I was there to head it in. So I'd done what I was told in some respects.
Dangerous play on the ball in the air, and when it's on the ground. Rodney can have a word with Kay for holding the ball like that. Anyway, got the free kick over. To number 10, Marsh. Oh, it's a goal! A great goal! Rodney Marsh has scored! Oh, what a goal!
Mike Keenan was a terrific passer, hit the ball up to me along the surface of Wembley, and it didn't deviate, you know, an inch. It skipped off the turf, and it was a little bit skiddy, and it came straight to me, and I controlled it dead. And I was about 40 yards out, and I've seen the videotape since, and I turned and looked to the left, carrying the ball, looking to the left, had nowhere to go on the left, so I then came back to the right and looked to play. I was looking to play 1-2s, and as I'm going along, I'm sort of going past players, not even knowing really what I was doing, and in the end I ended up about 25 yards out, and I thought I'd have a crack, and skipped off the surface at the inside of the post and flew in. It was just the sense that you get, and the crowd went absolutely ballistic. It was, you know, it was like everybody was. It seemed like the West Brom fans were cheering for us because it was the Goliath getting caught by David. Because West Brom were a top first division team in those days, a really, really top team, and they had internationals all over the place. And we were like the old third division, you know, gutter boys, if you like. And to see, you know, that equaliser, and from that point on, everybody on the pitch, I've maintained this ever since, everybody on the pitch knew that QPR were going to win. Even the referee.
Albion have got 8 men in the penalty area. And Williams the saviour then. It comes to. Oh, Allen telegraphed that, and he was obstructed. Right in front of the linesman. Not been altogether popular, that gentleman, with the Rangers fans. Then linesmen never are popular, are they? Allen with the free kick. More Albion players pack back in goal. Now it's Hunt. Lazarus and Hunt. Lazarus, it's a goal! Rangers are in the lead. Springett comes out of his goal to join in the celebration. 9 minutes left and the Rangers are in the lead. And Lazarus the score, and there's Springett joining in the celebration. What a sensational side at Wembley, and Shepherd is injured. And that is 2 weeks in succession. We've seen a goal scored in match of the day with the goalkeeper lying injured.
Before the ball crossed the line, you're turning, and because I knew it was in. It was a little clip with my left foot, and before it went past, because I think what's his name was on the goal line, the goalkeeper was out of the goal, and Kay, I think it was on the goal line, and I clipped it with my left foot past him into the corner of the net, and I knew it was in. You know you do, don't you? When you're playing football, if push the ball and it goes past the goalkeeper and it's going into the net. You know it's going in, which we did. And I think the first person, when I turned round, I think the first person was jumping all over me was Ronnie Hunt, who had played the 1-2 with me to create the situation. And because after that, it's a feeling that, you know, sitting here, you just can't describe the feeling, can you? I mean, I can say to you that I could have jumped over the moon or whatever, but it's all different, you know. It's a feeling that you can only get when you score a goal.
And when we scored the winning goal, which by today, in today's football, Ron Hunt would have probably got sent off, because he played a 1-2 on the edge of the, he was a centre half. What he was doing up there, nobody ever knows, but that was the way we played. He played a 1-2 on the edge of the box, and the return pass was over here. And it was 50-50 between him and Rick Shepherd, the goalkeeper of West Brom. And as I was watching it, I was coming from behind the play. As I was watching it, I thought, he's not going to pull out. And it was one of those, you know, when the forward jumps over the goalkeeper, because it's too, he hasn't got the, you know, the keeper's got the slight advantage, and the forward usually runs and jumps over. And as I was looking at it, I thought, he's not going to pull out of this. And he just steamed in with his studs, 6 studs showing, right into the chest of Shepherd, knocked him out. The ball spun loose. Everybody looks around for the referee to send him off. And he went, play on. Mark Lazarus just ran up, knocked it into the empty goal, and the rest, as we say, is history.
9 minutes left and the Rangers are in the lead. And they're still not satisfied, those Rangers fans. They want more now. Rangers players is a matador at heart. Have you ever seen anything like that at Wembley? Going over to shake hands with them now. And poor old Rick Shepherd still doesn't know anything about it. No doubt about it, it was a goal. He went down, an accident. Collision, and it ran loose to this man, the goal scorer, Mark Lazarus. And Wembley Stadium has never had a moment like this, with a third division team playing in a cup final here for the very first time. 2 down, now lead 3-2. Then 3-2 down. This time, his young brother Peter is in completely the opposite situation. Shepherd all right again. The Rangers fans preparing to tear Wembley Stadium apart and then start on Shepherd Bush. I only hope the BBC television centre can escape the celebration. Now here's Allen. And away goes Morgan. Time to add on in this match. Fraser to Aston. But now a chance for Lazarus to break clear. Morgan, you're offside. Morgan's offside, so Lazarus must do it himself. He has both. Mark Lazarus, what a player this. He's been regarded as a cast-off about 3 times in his career. He's still only about 26 or 27. They'll talk about this game for years and years and years. And it's over! It's not Rangers. The third division club have won. And West Bromwich Albion are defeated for the first time. There's Mark Lazarus who got the winning goal. Has football ever known anything like this? A third division team has reached a cup final at Wembley for the first time, and not only won but come back from 2 down to win 3-2. 3-2, and there's Jim Langley, number 3. And 38 has got a cup winner's medal. The score line we never expected to see. And up goes Mike Keane, his 214th consecutive appearance for Queen's Park Rangers, goes up to receive the cup from the Lord Mayor of London, Sir Robert Bellinger. This, a memorable, unforgettable occasion. 100,000 people have seen little Queen's Park Rangers come back from 2 down to win 3-2. And there is Mike Keane, not missed a game for 4 years. The Lord Mayor of London himself, a director of Arsenal, must realise what a fantastic feat this is. And all I can say to anybody is keep clear of Shepherd's Bush tonight. And there's Morgan, who got the first goal. Well, you can fill it tonight, sir. And there's Jim Langley, 38 years of age, a credit to the game for years and years and years. Now, the twilight of his career has got a comfort his friend, Rodney Marsh. Mark Lazarus, who got the winning goal. And a supporter has got onto the field, one of the men who carried the coffin of the Albion, and he's joining. There he is. Well, they'll be dancing all night round Shepherd's Bush Green with those drums, I should think.
Rangers had done it. The first, and to this day, only major trophy won by the club. We'd not only won the cup, but we qualified to play in Europe for the first time in our history, and not for the last time in our history. As Rodney Marsh explains, that European dream was over before it actually started.
In those days, the League Cup was a trophy where you could get into Europe. So if you won the League Cup, you actually qualify for Europe. UEFA, when QPR won it, they said, no, we can't have lower division teams in it, so we couldn't play in it.
We did come from 2-0 down and beat West Bromwich Albion, who was a top side in them days. We beat them 3-2, and I happened to score the winning goal. Apart from that, you know, it was just a day.
The 67 team will always be the history of this football club.
Despite that minor disappointment, the fans and the players partied long into the night, creating memories that will live forever. There was no rest for QPR after that superb win at Wembley. The team were back in action on the Tuesday night with a home game against Bournemouth. It was a night of massive celebrations. 21,000 fans packed out Loftus Road, and the team stormed into a 2-0 lead thanks to Mike Keane and Rodney Marsh. Les Allen got a third as Bournemouth were blown away before Rodney Marsh capped off a great night, making it 4-0. The club then produced a souvenir programme for the visit of Peterborough United on Saturday the 11th of March, but the visitors were there to stop the party, and did so, drawing 0-0. A second 0-0 draw in a row followed at Orient, and it was the first time in 4 years that QPR had back-to-back goalless draws. Easter weekend followed, and that would see a return to the goal-scoring ways. Rangers played 3 times over that weekend. Good Friday saw Darlington visit Loftus Road, and they were the latest team to suffer against Alex Stock's free-flowing team. Goals from Marsh, Lazarus, Allen and a Jim Langley penalty saw yet another 4-goal win. The following day, Gillingham made the trip across to West London, and they were in the frame for automatic promotion at the time, but they were no match for Rangers. Ian Morgan and Rodney Marsh getting the goals to put Rangers on the brink of promotion. The busy weekend ended with a 0-0 draw at Darlington, who would go on to be relegated. So March 1967, not a bad month really. Not a single league goal conceded in 6 games, 10 goals scored, and once again unbeaten. And then was the small matter of winning the League Cup. We've had worse months down the Rangers. April Fool's Day saw us travel north to Workington, who were no match for Rangers. Another for Ian Morgan and a Jim Langley penalty saw Rangers win that one comfortably. But injuries were starting to pile up a bit, with Roger Morgan, Frank Sibley and Ron Hunt all starting to miss a few games. But the wins kept coming though. Scunthorpe came to Loftus Road struggling down the bottom, and those struggles were going to continue as Rangers gave them a good hiding as well. That game saw a debut for England youth international Dave Clement, who would of course go on to have a brilliant career at QPR. And he played for arguably our two best ever sides in this 66-67 team, as well as being a regular in the 1975-76 season. For a third division side, Rangers boasted a number of England youth internationals in their squad. We had Clement as well as Mick Leach, Roger Morgan, Peter Springett, Tony Hazel and Frank Sibley. Clement's debut saw Scunthorpe leave Loftus Road empty-handed. Rodney Marsh and Mark Lazarus both scored twice in a 5-1 win. We did suffer our first away defeat in 19 games, losing 2-0 at Walsall on a night when Rodney Marsh suffered an injury which would rule him out for 5 games. Still, the job was almost done, and we travelled to Oldham knowing a win would seal promotion and the league title. Oldham had been the only side to win at Loftus Road all season, so revenge was in the air, and even without our star man Rodney Marsh, we got the win, Alan Wilkes scoring the only goal of the game to complete an unbelievable double for the club. Loftus Road was packed out on the 22nd of April as the trophy was paraded around the pitch by this great side, and they got yet another win, 3-1 this time thanks to a double from Wilkes, who finished the season strongly. It's fair to say the season kind of drifted a bit after that. The job was done, and Rangers won just one of their last 5 games, a 2-1 win over Colchester, with Keith Sanderson and Les Allen on the score sheet. We lost as many times in the final 8 games as we had in the previous 38, but no one cared a bit. This had been a special season. Rodney Marsh was back, and he got our final goal of the season in a 2-1 defeat at Oxford, and we ended the season with 67 points. It's worth pointing out that if it was 3 points for a win as it is now, we'd have finished on 93 points. It was close for second place, with Middlesbrough just pipping Watford and Reading to promotion. Rodney Marsh was our top scorer that year with an incredible 44 goals, 30 in the league and 14 in the cup, which remains the highest number of goals scored by a QPR player in a single season. The team scored an amazing 134 goals in all competitions. Mark Lazarus got 21, Les Allen scored 20, Roger Morgan got 14. It remains the last time that 3 QPR players scored more than 20 goals in a season. This would prove to be the last season at QPR for Peter Springett, who left to join Sheffield Wednesday that summer, whilst Jim Langley retired from league football aged 38, but he would continue to play in non-league for Hillingdon Borough. Alex Stock had put together one of our greatest ever teams full of brilliant young players, great older heads and an absolute superstar in Rodney Marsh. This was a season that put QPR on the footballing map as we got ready to play in Division 2 for the first time in 16 years. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a like and subscribe to the channel.
Who'd have thought that we'd have done it? Who'd have thought that we'd be here? Who'd have thought that we'd be knocking back champagne? Who'd have thought that we'd have won it? Who'd have thought we'd get the cheer? When final whistle blew, we'd won the game. QPR, they're the greatest. QPR, they're the greatest. Queen's Park Rangers are on the up and up. QPR, they're the greatest. QPR, they're the greatest. Now we're heading for the European Cup. Now West Brom, they were the neater. At the start they had us licked. At half time we were feeling pretty grim. Cause the two that got past Peter, blimey mate, they had him tricked. But old Alex still felt sure that we could win.
QPR, they're the greatest. QPR, they're the greatest. Queen's Park Rangers are on the up and up all together.
QPR,
they're the greatest.
QPR,
they're the greatest.
now we're heading for the European Cup. We came out with Mike the Master, who was urging us to go, and then Roger Upton headed us a goal. Rodney equalised soon after, then before the ref could blow, well, I added yet another to the toll.
QPR, they're the greatest.
QPR,
they're the greatest.
Queen's Park Rangers are on the up and up. QPR,
they're the greatest.
QPR,
they're the greatest.
now we're heading for the European Cup. Who've you got then? Well, there's Frank and Keith and Tony, and Jim's not retiring yet. There's Les Allen, Ronnie, Anson, Rogers twin. With a team like that, not only can you flipping well get set, but you bet your life we're sure to bloody win. QPR, QPR,
they're the greatest.
Queen's Park Rangers are on the up and up. QPR.